Chad Johnson, currently in Broward County Jail in Florida, arrested Saturday night on a charge of domestic violence. According to police, the Dolphins wideout headbutted his wife of just over a month. Johnson's language, the least of Joe Philbin's concerns today. The Dolphins coach now faced with the dilemma of what to do with the wide receiver.
All right, guys, let me have your attention. This isn't going to be very long. I think you're probably all aware that there was an incident with Chad Johnson that was, he was involved in recently. We've worked long and hard to make this a professional working environment, and we got a lot of work to do. So my job's to coach, yours is to play. All right, there's a situation involved in it. It is what it is, and it'll play itself out once we gather more information. I have faith and confidence that we'll make the right decision and the appropriate decision at that time.
I just got a call from him, and he is shook up. I mean, his voice is cracking.
Yeah.
He thinks you're going to cut him.
So he obviously has some inkling of what may be coming.
No question about it. I'm sure he was told that by his agent, but he's also smart enough to realize it. Because he said to me, he said, this isn't, he said, you know what happened last week with Coach Philbin? I said, yeah. I said, I know he talked to you about your remarks, and this is like, this is probably going to be my death penalty.
So, but maybe make it maybe get him at 7:35 or something, be about 5 or 7 minutes late. Because we get the team meeting at 7:30.
Okay.
We'll let guys transition into the meeting room. So
okay. And I'm going to bring him in the front door.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that way he won't.
No, that's
won't that.
Okay.
I mean, we had an incident this summer where he was tweeting stuff that he shouldn't have. Then we had the press conference where he goes off on a tirade, and F this and F that. And then, now we got, this thing all within, he hasn't been around us a whole long time. So his temperament isn't great for us, it just doesn't, when things are good, it's good. But when things, things aren't so good, he can be a tad,
Sit down. Sit. You all right?
Yeah.
I know. I let you down a little bit.
Well,
a lot.
Well,
I understand what you're doing. You got the message across clear the first day we met.
Right.
Not individually, even as a team. And I understood what you wanted from me and what you expected out of me, especially after our talk. With the having fun and with the media thing. And I apologize for embarrassing you, this organization, and my teammates.
I appreciate that. I respect that. I know you're very passionate. I know you care about your profession. And I hope you know that everything that I do, to the best of my ability, I attempt to put some thought behind, what we do. Whether it's how we practice, how we meet, how I deal with players, and I do my best not to, fly off the handle and act irrational, and it's just, I don't know that this is working for the benefit of you, me, the Miami Dolphins, or anybody else. And I think you're a good person, and I trust me. I acknowledge people make mistakes, and nobody knows that more than me. And
Coach, I've never been in trouble before.
I know that.
Ever. And I buy into your program, most definitely. Because after that talk we had, I was hushed from that point on, and I was going to stay that way the entire year.
Yeah. I know. It's not really just last night or that. It's just, where we are as a program and where you are and where we're headed. I just don't see the mesh right now. And I wish it was different. I wish I could tell you something more encouraging, but I just think it's the best for both of us that we kind of part ways at this point in time. It's not like I'm trying to flex my muscles and say I'm the head coach and let's make an example of Chad John. It has nothing to do with that. It's more about, how you fit in, how we fit in together, where this thing is heading. just don't see it being what I thought it would be or what I hoped it would be. And it's not good news. It's not good news for us either. But I'm certain you can overcome this thing. And is there anything more to
say? No.
I mean.
No. Just thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate. I
enjoyed myself.
Yeah.
Not much more I can say at this point.
I know.
I appreciate it though.
Well,
thank you for the chance.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wish that we were having a different type of a conversation. I mean that.
Right.
But I wish you I wish you well. I really do.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks.
It's Sunday, March 24th, 2013. I'm Kevin McShan, and this is the McShan Sports Beat Report.
Fresh Kid Z, Fresh Kid C, yes, Fresh Kid P, Fresh Kid T. Oh yeah, we back. Oh, and Zafoon, by the way. Yeah, Jones. Yeah. Chitty Bang, and we pretty much amazing. Can we hear your new song, please? I got you. Hey yo, I once was a kid, all I had was a dream. More money, more problems, when I get it, I'ma pile it up. Now I'm dope, want the bread we can toast. So fresh how we flow, everybody get this style from us. I once was a kid with the other little kids. Now I'm ripping up shows and them fans going wild with us. Tell mommy I'm sorry, this life is a party. I'm never growing up. Reminisce days of the innocence. Now it's Chitty Bang, Google me the images. Follow me, I'm the leader. And when I park cars, I don't pay for the meter. I remember I was younger as a kid, it was the best. I used to touch on all the pretty girls in recess. I'm at my peak, yes, I won't leave yet. Cereal style, cereal aisle, I need checks. I can make these rappers run like a hard drill. Rock band, show you how the guitar feel. And I could care less how y'all feel. I got a flow to make a bitch do a cartwheel. This is that good, just pump it and relax, bro. And you could get it free, don't worry about the tax, though. And Zafoon, thank you for the crack, but I play around Burgundy, I anchor on the track. Hey, yo, I once was a kid, all I had was a dream. More money, more problems, when I get it, I'ma pile it up.
I can still play football. That's
okay, but
why it went wrong in New England? I don't know.
Okay, you know what, Chad?
Why did it go wrong in New England?
You
asking me all these answers like I don't know why it went the way it did.
Well, you have a thought. I know there's a thought in the back of your head.
Of course there's a thought.
Well,
you think I'm going to say it here? No.
Chad, with all due respect, I'm going to say this on the air on live television.
Please.
I'm one of those people, man. I believe your personal life is your business. I don't give a damn about your personal life. I'm glad. I wish you well. I wish the best for you. But what you do as a football player is everybody's business. And I would appreciate it if you stand up here front and center and let the world know what you are and who you are as a football player. You have a right to speak on that, and we have a right to ask.
You hear what you're asking me?
You're a football player.
You telling me to tell you who I am as a football player. You know what I am as a football player.
I know what you used to be.
Listen. Well, what do you want? What do you want me to do? The pass, it didn't work out in New England. What do you want me to do?
I'm saying.
What do you want me to do? It didn't work out in New England. What do you want me to say?
Chad, you have a football acumen. You understand this game better than us. So tell us who you are as a football player. What do you have to offer to a team right now, Tad? Could you be a #1 receiver for any team in this NFL right now?
You think I couldn't? Why? Because it didn't work in New England?
I'm asking.
Of course I can. But you think I can't because it didn't work in New England?
No.
Maybe the system didn't fit.
Yes, I do.
But I don't. I believe you can.
Maybe the system didn't fit for me. Maybe it didn't fit for me.
Well,
maybe
tell us why. Educate us.
How am I supposed to know why?
You're the football player.
It would be you.
Then I don't want you on my team if you don't know why.
What do you, Who are you? That's why you're sitting here and not a GM. Listen, it didn't work in New England. It worked for 10 years, and I get to New England, it didn't work. Maybe it's a system. I don't know why. I can't put my finger on it, but it didn't work. And what makes it even worse, it didn't work with one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. It was nothing I could do. I wasn't going to complain. I wasn't going to, excuse my language, I wasn't going to say anything. I wasn't going to do anything to deter or be a distraction in New England. I went to practice. I worked hard. I did everything I was supposed to do. I didn't get the touches I wanted. I was upset, of course. Why am I upset? Because I'm playing with one of the best teams, let alone quarterbacks, that will ever play. Period. Case closed. I'm not finished.
Do you feel, so listen to the full question, do you feel you should have a job in the NFL, or do you feel you should be a number one receiver for somebody in the NFL?
I'm not worried about numbers. I think a job is sufficient for me. I think a job is sufficient for me.
May I tell you why I'm concerned about the numbers?
Why?
Because the Chad Johnson that I know would embrace the challenge of somebody doubting him and be hell-bent on proving not only do I belong in this game, I'm still an elite player in this game. And that's not where I'm hearing from you right now,
That
bro.
comes from
I'm not
play.
hearing that
That comes from play. I have no leverage to come off like that right now. Okay. I have no leverage to come off like that right now.
Okay, that's
which is
fair.
why I'm taking
That's
the approach
fair.
I'm taking.
That's
I don't have
fair.
leverage. I think a job will suffice, and then putting it back on the green grass the way I used to, then we'll talk about numbers. That's all.
Chad, you're facing NFL extinction.
Skip.
Okay, listen.
Look at me. If I don't play again, I'm going to be all right.
I believe you will be all right.
It's not an issue.
My fear is you will not play again.
Okay.
This was an opportunity for you to set the record straight on national TV by saying, this is why it didn't work for me in the New England system. This is what Philbin did to me. This is where he wronged me, where it wasn't fair to me.
Why would I blame it on somebody else? Why would I blame it on somebody else? You telling me, oh, this is my opportunity and my stage to say this is why I should play again, and it's not going to happen because I'm sitting here with you? Man, get out of here, man. I will get an opportunity to play again. Why? Because this is the NFL and there's always second chances.
Wait a minute.
My first time.
I'm concerned about that. Not about you. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at T.O. I'm looking at the culture. Now, don't get me wrong, because I'm one of those, Skip, you can vouch for this. I'm on the record. You know, before the incident, I always said, I don't see Chad Ochocinco getting in trouble. I don't see T.O. getting in trouble. I don't think that just because you bring attention to yourself that you should be ostracized from the NFL.
Right.
But obviously the culture that exists in the NFL today, they're trying to send a different message based on what I can tell. They seem to not want dudes in the NFL today that is about bringing attention to themselves. Do you get that sense?
Not really.
You don't get that sense?
No.
Really?
No. I mean, the way you can analyze it like that, but I mean, that's pretty cool. I like it, but we're talking about me being able to get the opportunity to play again.
Because you know what that means. And let me say this, Gary. This is why I asked that question, because this is what it means to me. What it means to me is that if that's the underlying message that they're sending, and somebody like you is getting it, then what happens is if you go back into the league, it's basically going back to the league with the same mentality you had in New England, which to me stripped you of your mojo and what made you, Chad, an elite receiver in this game. Do you see the connection?
Yeah, I don't see what the problem is, though.
Is it an act of desperation or a last-ditch, legitimate attempt to get back in the league? No matter which side of the ledger you fall on regarding this argument, when it comes to the comeback attempt of one Chad Johnson, it appears that he may have one potential suitor acting as his advocate down Texas way, and Houston Texans wide receiver Andre Johnson, as he puts out preliminary fillers to his own team to see if he can't aid Johnson's comeback attempt to the gridiron. Back in December, Johnson made an early plea for a Christmas present from all 32 teams, relaying to anyone who would listen that he was open for business and wanted another opportunity to play the game he loved, to play professional football. I haven't set up any meetings. I could put a few words in, but that's not my call, Andre Johnson told Comcast SportsNet Houston. I think he'll get another opportunity. I think he'll be very successful. Get back to the Chad we're used to seeing playing football. A contrite Chad Johnson continues to express his remorse and regret resulting from his domestic battery incident and arrest involving his wife when he headbutted her, which led to his release from the Miami Dolphins during training camp last summer. I'd love to get a second chance to play the game I love, Johnson told Comcast SportsNet Houston. It was taken from me, and I think I've learned my lesson. Really, it's in God's hands. Johnson says that he wouldn't hesitate to join the Texans' high-powered arsenal on offense if given the chance. If I could be that last piece, Johnson said, especially with me being somewhat humble and being in a position where I have to prove myself again, which could be scary. While it appears that Johnson has found the fountain of humility, which is refreshing to see, he will, in all likelihood, have a tough time cracking the roster and the lineup for the Texans or any other team for that matter. He is now 35 and no longer capable of serving as a number one wide receiver, and he doesn't contribute on special teams. Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless of ESPN's First Take tussle over Johnson's most recent release from the Miami Dolphins and his future in the league.
I don't think this is hyperbole at all to say that last night's Hard Knocks episode on HBO was probably the most anticipated in this show's history because it involved the release of Chad Johnson. It aired last night. A lot of gripping moments, some very stirring television. Skip, I will begin with you. What was your reaction when you saw Coach Joe Philbin release Chad Johnson?
My reaction was, who in the name of Don Shula does rookie head coach Joe Philbin think he is? What a low blow, calling in a 6-time Pro Bowl receiver at his lowest moment. Chad Johnson apologizing left and right and cutting him, knowing full well that the HBO Hard Knocks cameras were rolling and rolling and rolling.
But Skip, isn't that what happens on this show? We see this happen to a number of players all the time.
I mean, Joe Philbin is already carrying himself like he's won 4 or 5 Super Bowls. This is a man who played 1 year of football at something called Washington and Jefferson College in Washington, Pennsylvania, and slowly worked his way up the ladder. Wasn't even Green Bay's coordinator, if I'm not mistaken, because I think Mike McCarthy calls all those plays. And all of a sudden, he's the head coach of the Dolphins on Hard Knocks, letting the cameras in on his innermost discussions because he wants to be the new star in Miami. At the expense of Chad Johnson, he wants to show he's the man in Miami. And Stephen A., this is the classic little man trying to become a big man. I'm convinced that this was a setup from the start. I don't think he wanted Chad on his team in the first place. I think he set him up to be an example, to be made, a sacrificial lamb, to show that the world that, by golly, he's in charge of this team. And I, for one, after this, I felt sorry for the way Chad got run out of town by somebody named Joe Philbin.
Well, you can feel sorry for him all you want to, and I can't blame you for that because we all know Chad Johnson to be a relatively good person, these latest incidents notwithstanding. But the fact of the matter is, all your points are completely irrelevant to the point at hand. Chad Johnson is a football player for the Miami Dolphins. Chad Johnson knew that this team would be telecast by HBO for Hard Knocks. Chad Johnson was bragging about it on Twitter. He was talking about how he was looking forward to it. He knew the bright lights and the cameras would be there. So don't you think it would behoove him to make sure that he doesn't find himself in such a precarious situation so that kind of stuff would not be on camera?
I don't think he planned it.
I understand that. But even if you didn't plan that, At the same time, you walked in there from day one. We have to remember when we watched HBO's Hard Knocks last night, what we saw was Chad Johnson, before Philbin had uttered a word, Chad Johnson had apologized. He had alluded to how we didn't get off on the right foot from the very beginning. Well, why was that? It was something that Skip Bayless, my dude, just pointed out a few days ago when he said Chad Johnson was being talked to by Philbin a few days ago. And he seemed he seemed very dismissive.
Yep,
he seemed
did.
very aloof. You said that. So now here you come apologizing. Why? Why did you need to apologize? It wasn't just because of the incident itself. It was because of how you came across when you initially communicated with them.
Maybe.
In terms of how you conduct yourself, first impressions are something very significant. You rolled up in there. You're not Chad Johnson from 5 years ago. You ain't Chad Johnson from 4 years ago. You ain't Chad Johnson from 6 years ago. You are Chad Johnson who struggled to get playing time in New England. A Chad Johnson that it was widely reported had lost a step or two, that didn't seem to be himself.
I don't know if that was widely reported.
Well, listen,
it's just that he couldn't grasp the system in New England.
People were saying he wasn't the same Chad Johnson. They were saying he was 34 years of age. They were wondering whether or not his time was up. You know all of this, okay? And you still get yourself involved in this situation? And Joe Philbin is cruel? It would have been cruel if he picked up the phone and called them, didn't even ask to see him. The man sat down.
Well, you couldn't get that on film, man.
Time out. He
need to stage it.
But wait a minute. But again, on Hard Knocks, this stuff happens all the time where we see players get cut.
Yeah.
Philbin sat there, looked him in his face, and said to him, I don't think this is going to work for either one of us. That's how he felt. Now, Chad, I felt bad for Chad because clearly he was wounded. Clearly he looked hurt. And nobody should wish that on anybody. Athlete, I don't care who it is.
Lowest moment of Chad's life.
You should not wish that on anybody. But the bottom line is, I don't think Philbin overstepped his bounds. He's the head coach.
What happened to innocent until proven guilty? What happened to standing behind the players in your locker room until the court rules?
Wait a minute. Guilt, innocent is irrelevant here with Philbin. Philbin said he didn't sit there and say, I'm convicting you in a court of public opinion. He's saying, I don't want you. There's a difference. He didn't sit there and say you should be thrown in jail. He's saying, I don't want you. If it was Megatron, if it was Fitzgerald, if it was Andre Johnson or somebody, would Philbin have done that? Probably not. So the point that I'm trying to make to you is that this doesn't just have something to do with Chad Johnson and his incident with his wife, which I can't wait to get into. It is something else entirely as well. And that something else is, we don't think we're going to lose much by losing you, which is an indictment against Chad Johnson's skill set, which means that no. What I mean by indictment is that's what Philbin thinks. So my point is, since Philbin thinks that, it's up to you, Chad Johnson, to turn around, because you got a rookie coach in Philbin that made this decision. You also had a future Hall of Fame coach in Bill Belichick who let him go. So my point is, clearly, on both ends of the spectrum, you've got people questioning your value as a football player. Suck it up and handle that.
And
that's what he needs to do.
And to piggyback on what Stephen A. said, most people can't even name another receiver on that roster. So given the situation, don't you think if they felt like he could contribute, that he would still be there?
I just got the feeling, and they did point out, for the record, Chad in the first exhibition game dropped a slant pass from Matt Moore that hit him right in the hands. It was a bullet, but he should have caught it. And then we had David Garrard behind closed doors questioning Chad's route running, so it fed right back into, we had Philbin pointing out our problem was that in New England he couldn't, I'm paraphrasing, couldn't grasp the system. Then we had Philbin sitting at his desk saying, we didn't like what Chad posted on Twitter a few weeks ago. I don't know exactly what he was referring to there. And then his intro press conference that we talked about all last week that was featured in the first Hard Knocks, he was F-bombing and very profane.
And then him saying that he wanted to be a porn star. Painting the fingernails black.
So Philbin's saying, not my cup of tea. That's fine, but I got the feeling this was all set up so that Philbin could make an example of Chad Johnson, a guy who had come back to his hometown to resurrect himself. He wanted to make an example to show the team, I'm the new sheriff in this locker room. I still think, and we had a Carlos Dansby quote, and I don't know, I can't characterize the whole locker room. There's also an anonymous quote yesterday, the other side of this, saying we don't need clowns in our locker room.
Right.
But I'm still saying the veteran players on this team thought that was cold-blooded and not the way you treat a teammate until you find out a little more about said circumstance with the
I got news
wife.
for you, Skip. Chad Johnson, the 6-time Pro Bowler, may have been called a clown by people in the media. That wasn't the case with his teammates. They start talking about you. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's 5 people as opposed to 52.
Well, it's one anonymous.
What I'm saying to you is, if you have that going on, that's, again, an indictment against your skill set, because when you're the man, you don't get talked about like that. It does not happen. You know, even though you might not like somebody's antics, listen, you have been on the record vilifying T.O. for many years. Jason Witten, Tony Romo's, and others have said what they've said about T.O. publicly and privately.
Because he was a team obliterator.
Allow me to get to my point.
No,
I'm saying I'm just saying. I was
characterize it correctly.
But you don't know how I'm going to characterize it. Just hold on.
Okay.
What I'm saying to you is that despite all of that, they don't go that far with T.O. You know why? Because he can ball. That's my point. So you have to look at the kind of things that's considered. When they go on attack about T.O., they're serious. Not dismissive, though. They're serious. They lament it. They have a problem with it. But they're not dismissive because they know he can ball. With Chad Johnson, all of this ultimately comes back down to them questioning what you got left. Do you really have something left? Can you really
to my eye, in the first Hard Knocks, Chad looked like he could still ball.
Okay.
I think he can still. Again, is he going to run his own routes occasionally?
But I do too. No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I do too. What I'm saying to you is that, but we don't see what they see. And I'm saying it's alarming to me. Yeah, Philbin's the rookie coach, and I got that. I'm with you on that. But Belichick's a future Hall of Famer.
Tom Brady, too.
And Tom Brady, you got a superstar quarterback, and he's there. And we can do without you.
Okay, but if you don't run the routes as called for Tom Brady, you are out.
So if he can't succeed with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, why is it so hard to believe that he can't do it with a rookie head coach and a quarterback situation that's still fluid?
I'm on record with this. I'm on record. Joe Philbin will regret cutting Chad Johnson by December. By December. Let's let this play out a little bit. It's going to be a long, hard year for these Joe Philbin Dolphins.
It's going to be a long, hard year whether Chad was there or not.
I don't know about that.
Come on now. Stop.
Well,
Stop.
I'm stopping right now. Let's just see what Ryan Tannehill. I think he's the next Dan Marino. Good luck with that.
I like Tannehill. I like him a lot.
Well, you're wrong.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I like him.
I'm on record with that one, too. Good luck to these people.
Does anyone truly believe that Chad Johnson is serious about making a legitimate return to the game he says he loves? He had a shot last summer in Miami as the Dolphins were attempting to find their footing, but then he decided to be idiotic, foolish, and stupid and headbutt his wife, crushing any opportunity he thought he had to regain his once controversial but respected reputation. Chad Johnson is now in his mid-30s, and his physical skills have certainly declined. And while it certainly was and is a nice gesture for Andre Johnson to attempt to put out a helping hand as his fellow wide receiver attempts to make his own resurrection of his career for a third time, it was a failed endeavor in both New England and Miami. And while Houston certainly does need a third wide receiver, with the release of Kevin Walters, I'm not totally convinced that Johnson is the right man to fit the bill for the job description. Chad Johnson is always good for a soundbite, and he's a media darling for sure. He's awfully entertaining to listen to from an engaging perspective of both humor and flair. However, as far as his athletic acumen, I think that gas tank is about out of gas. So I'll chalk this one up to I'll believe it when I see it, because, my friends, something smells fishy here, and something I'm simply not believing. This is a matter that's up for debate for sure. I've stated my case, and now it's time for Johnson to state his, to see if anyone will take the bait and reel him in to give him yet another opportunity. Kevin McShan, Sports Beat, reports.
They get embarrassed. And basically, after the day, you will kiss the baby.